Joining us now, MSNBC White House reporter Laura Barron-Lopez, chair of the Advancing American Freedom Board, and former Trump White House Legislative Affairs Director Marc Short. Good to have you, sir. MSNBC columnist and contributor Philip Bump, and senior writer at The Dispatch and MSNBC contributor, once again, David Drucker. All right, Laura, H-1B visas. Is the White House concerned?
Look, I think the White House is definitely concerned because I was just talking to a former Trump advisor who regularly talks to White House staff still, and that advisor told me that staff is not happy about those comments that the president made during that Laura Ingraham interview, specifically because they feel like they were just trying to get him onto an affordability message, onto more of that America First message that you're talking about, and then he went and said this about American workers, saying that no, America doesn't necessarily have, quote, certain talent. And this former advisor that I was speaking to said that cavalier approach, that's the word that they used, the fact that he was, quote, dismissing Americans, that's the problematic part for the president. And it's something that they feel that he needs to essentially stop saying. I mean, right now, they think that obviously this created a lot of backlash, and MAGA base and a number of Republicans across D.C. that I've talked to were not happy about this interview. They were frankly pissed off. But they said that they think that as long as the president sticks to his initial H-1B visa plan, which was to, add this $100,000 check to it and essentially say that he was going to restrict the number of high-skilled workers coming in, they think that if he sticks to that policy, then eventually this could potentially blow over.
Yeah, there was one social media post that I saw, Mark, that said, we trained a bunch of housewives in World War II to drill together airplanes. You're telling me we can't train people to work in tech or engineering? They were upset that Donald Trump would say this country doesn't have a smart enough, base of people to do it. But tell me I'm wrong. Tell me that this is not a big issue.
I don't think that the president's going to lose his support over immigration issues. I think that support is pretty well locked in. I think that the president has an adept ability to change positions quickly, and often he beta tests lines that he sees don't work, and he reverts back to his original position. Katie, you've covered him long enough. You'll recall multiple instances where this has happened on other areas, and maybe they're not perfect, analogies, but, certainly as you might recall after one of the tragedies in the first administration of a school shooting, he hosted a large group of senators in the cabinet room and called for gun bans. And, he quickly received what that response was from his base and reverted back to his original position. And I think that his base is going to give him a lot of latitude on issues when it comes to immigration, particularly when they see the border secure in ways that it was not in the previous administration. So, yeah, do I think this is an unforced error by him? It is. But do I think that it's something that he's going to lose his base over? No. I think you'll see him probably pivot back to the original messaging on H-1B visas before too long.
David, we were just talking about another form of this conversation with the anti-Semitism stuff. But I wonder what you're seeing out there from your reporting. Do you think Mark's right? Do you think the base is not going anywhere no matter what Donald Trump says?
Well, I mean, you never want to say never because eventually you're wrong. But I think Donald Trump continues to have a really unique, strong connection and relationship with his voting base, more so than other politicians I've seen. I think what this episode does tell us, though, is that his successor at the top of the ticket in 2028 for the Republican Party is going to have a much tougher time keeping the Trump coalition together and may not be able to do it. Donald Trump has always been just establishment enough for old guard Republicans and just anti-establishment enough for the populist right that doesn't vote in every election but has been reliably showing up whenever Donald Trump is on the ballot. I think we should also point out here that Donald Trump really fumbled the answer, which he doesn't, really do that often when talking about immigration. All he had to say was that, of course, we have a lot of American talent, but one of the things that has made us one of the greatest countries in the world and given us a competitive global edge that no other country has is we not only have our talent, we attract talent from around the world. They help us develop medical devices and technology and all the sorts of things that end up enriching the American economy and the American worker. So we're going to train up our talent and we're going to, scoop up talent from around the world, and nobody's going to be able to match us. Of course, that's not what he said.
Phil?
Yeah, I mean, I think David's exactly right. You should never bet against Donald Trump being able to lock down his base, right? It's been 10 years now since he's been the preeminent voice in Republican politics, and that is held true. I do think, though, that it's important to remember that every day that passes is one day closer to Donald Trump not being president anymore, and that there are a lot of people who are going to be jockeying for the attention of his base to potentially be the replacement or to carve off a slice of that power and attention for themselves. And so every day that passes, we see more and more of these sorts of fissures, and yes, he may be able to seal some of these fissures back up, but eventually there's going to be someone or something that emerges that he's not able to repair that ultimately that power and that attention are going to go somewhere else, and everyone is going to start making inroads. It's happening even as we speak.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a lot of discontent out there, and it's not just the stuff that you're seeing online, Mark. And I'll push back. You have Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's been becoming very quickly a big thorn in the president's side. She responded to him earlier this morning, saying he said that she had lost her way, and she says she's always been for the American people. NBC News is reporting that she's now questioning if Donald Trump is still the America First president. So I'll bring you back to the question I had at the beginning. So if the Tea Party became MAGA, and is MAGA still MAGA, or is MAGA becoming America First? And if so, is Donald Trump still that guy? Do you really think it's easy for him to brush these sorts of comments off?
No, I don't, Katie. To be clear, I didn't say he would never lose his base. What I said is I don't think he's in jeopardy of losing his base over this issue with immigration. And if we think that, he never does that on immigration issues, in the first administration, you might recall, he said, I think we should have a pathway to citizenship for DACA. And he wanted to offer that in exchange for border wall funding. And so he does do this, and he gets singed, and then, he responds, and he has an amazing ability to pivot and switch his positions and pretend he never had the other position. And so I don't think that his base is in risk of losing him, even if Marjorie Taylor Greene is out pushing for extension of Obamacare subsidies and Trump's not, or other areas that Marjorie Taylor Greene is pushing. I don't think that's at risk. I do think that obviously what we've seen, though, is that the party has abandoned its principles for traditional conservatism entirely. And now you have us basically advocating for massive protectionism, price controls on drug imports, state-owned enterprises, and things that are antithetical to conservatives or anybody who believes in free markets. And so, yeah, you might see people, break away from him at the moment, but I think that he'll pivot on some of the issues that are core to him, like immigration, and then he'll pivot back when he feels like the base is responding to a line that he's beta testing.
Well, there's an interesting overlap here, David, with what we were talking about a moment ago with the anti-Semitism stuff, because this idea of America First is being very wholly embraced by the Tucker Carlsons and the Nick Fuenteses on the right, but their version of it is even more extreme. It's white and Christian first. It's no immigrants. It's going back to a more familiar, in their terms, view of this country as something that is better off without immigration, without diversity.
Yeah, well, I mean, America First itself was a slogan that had been banished because that's what it originally meant, and until Donald Trump revived it and refashioned it, nobody used it for decades. I mean, look, this is I think a part of the debate that the country has from time to time, and I don't mean anti-Semitism and racism versus not. I just mean that there are always wings of the political parties that are pushing for either policies that are extreme or policies that are not acceptable, and that's where the political parties can be very useful, because they can moderate and they can excise the extremes in their midst. It's just a matter of whether or not they're going to do it.
Yeah, they've got some Pam Bondi news I'm going to get to in one second, but just one more to you, Phil. There's this bumping of heads. There's this fight within the Republican Party for what it's going to be. Maybe Donald Trump is Donald Trump for the next 3 years. But what it's going to be after Donald Trump, what it looks like. Is it the Tucker Carlson party, or does it go back to, I don't know, some other form of normie Republican? Okay. Does it become this white nationalist party that believes that immigration wholeheartedly is bad and that this country should be Christian and Christian first and foremost?
Yeah, I mean, I think the challenge that the party has fundamentally is that Donald Trump has successfully shifted the political right in this country to essentially an attention-based economy. And the things that seize the most attention, the reason that we know who Nick Fuentes is, that you can just mention him and assume people know who he is he's very good at getting attention, right? And he does that by being provocative. He does that by saying things that are beyond the pale and that are outside the norms of what we would accept. But he gets a base because of that. And because of that shift toward this attention-seeking, that's the locus of power. That is what's being fought over. And so you're not going to win that. You know, God bless Marc Short, but you're not going to win that by saying, but what we need to do is move back to free trade. That's not the sort of thing that compels that the people who see that attention. Exactly. And so that's what the fight is going to be, unless there's a total revamp of what it means to be on the political right.
It feels like all political parties have a fight about who they are and what they're going to be. We're like in the middle of as David Brooks was arguing, a revolution. It's hard to figure out where exactly we're all going to end up. All right, Laura Barone Lopez, one more to you. Pam Bondi has responded to Donald Trump's call for investigations into Democrats with associations to Jeffrey Epstein. She says, thank you, Mr. President. SDNY U.S. Attorney Jay Clayton is one of the most capable and trusted prosecutors in the country, and I've asked him to take the lead. As with all matters, the department will pursue this with urgency and integrity to deliver answers to the American people. Donald Trump Truth Socialed earlier, I guess as we're talking about the Epstein stuff, don't look at me, essentially. Look at Larry Summers. Look at Bill Clinton. Look at Reid Hoffman.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's distract and deflect on this one. And it's also, I think, striking. We should not just brush over the fact that he posted online that he wanted his attorney general and the Justice Department to look into other people without really saying that they have any legitimate suspicion of wrongdoing on the part of those people that he mentioned, Reid Hoffman or Bill Clinton or J.P. Morgan or Chase. And the Attorney General of the United States responded and said, okay, it's just frankly stunning, I think, for all of us here who've been involved, whether it's who've covered it, who've been in the White House, like Marc Short, others, because of the fact that is not normal, Katie, for a president of the United States to post online that he would like the Justice Department to launch an investigation and the Attorney General to say, yes, I'll go do it. So that is a clear blurring of what was once a very independent institution, especially after Watergate, which was when there was the overhaul and the reforming of the Justice Department to make sure that it was independent and did not launch investigations at the behest of the President of the United States.
We're so far from the rules that were put in place after that. It's almost getting... It's just Watergate. Watergate what? What happened? Who cares? All right, Laura Barone Lopez, LBL, thank you so much. Marc Short, Professor of Public Policy and Economics at the University of Michigan, Betsy Stevenson, Phil Bump, Marc Short, still with us. All right, Betsy, 30 million illegal immigrants have taken housing, and that's why it's so expensive. Is that why it's so expensive to get a place in Brooklyn?
That's wrong. So we can start with that's wrong. First of all, I think that number's inflated. There's almost no estimates that suggest that there are 30 million undocumented people. Probably a closer number might be around 14 million, so he doubled it. Also, most of those people are going to be living in much more crowded conditions, so doubling up, tripling up, quadrupling up. They're not buying housing, and they are usually living in really cramped conditions. So I don't think that's the problem. It reminds me, look, if we want to get the conspiracy theories on the table, on the left, they start blaming private equity. On the right, they're blaming immigration. There's a true answer.
What is it?
We don't build enough housing. And so to the extent that immigrants are contributing to our housing crisis, it's the removal of immigrants right now, which is decimating the workers who would be working on construction sites. And then we're also raising building costs through all these tariffs. So what we need to do is build more housing, and that's going to mean changing zoning rules to make it easier to build housing and removing the tariffs and making sure that we can bring in plenty of workers so that we can build all the houses that we need. It's really a housing supply problem.
He talks about the price of eggs going down as well, to say that things aren't as bad as people think. He says gasoline is down. I mean, those are two examples, sure, but the rest of the costs have not been so, haven't budged in the way that they want them to budge, and inflation is still sticky.
Yeah, it'd be useful if the price of cherries went down, because then you could just pick cherries. Yeah, I mean, we when I was at the Post, when I was at the Washington Post earlier this year, we actually made a tracker of grocery prices. And if you look at it, yeah, eggs are down, but you'll remember that when Donald Trump came back into office, there was this huge bird flu pandemic, and so the price of eggs had skyrocketed.
But look, everything here is down a little bit.
Right, sure, yeah, right. I mean, it's easy to
I'm sorry,
things.
It's all up. It's all up. I was reading it backwards.
It's all sort of confusing. Yes, prices are up, and people notice the prices are up. And, this is, we keep having this conversation, and the conversation was had during the Biden administration, that you can say everything you want to say about how well the economy is doing, but if prices are up, then people understand the prices are up. And people understand the prices are up. J.D. Vance doesn't buy a lot of his own groceries at this point. Donald Trump is only loosely familiar with the term grocery, so I assume he doesn't either. And the real Americans who are out there who are actually buying these things know that this isn't true.
Marc Short, tell me I'm wrong. Tell me this conversation is wrong and everything's good.
No, I don't think you are wrong. I think that the administration deserves credit for lowering energy prices from the last year of the Biden administration by 25 to 30%. But in a lot of ways, Katie, that highlights how bad this trade policy has been, because you need that energy to actually transport all of those products to grocery stores. And so you would expect if energy prices are down that much, you'd see a correlation in grocery prices. But the reality is that this trade agenda is actually even that much worse, that you're actually still seeing price inflation. And obviously the administration knows that. They see it in their own polling. They know that the American people are concerned about affordability and cost of living. And it was crystal clear in the election a couple weeks ago. So no, I think this is directly responsible because of the trade agenda that this administration has been advancing. And as I said, if you take into consideration the fact you've actually lowered energy prices that much, it shows you that this trade agenda is actually that much more costly to the American people.
Let me read you something from the New York Post. They have an exclusive. Donald Trump asked CEOs at the White House, at a dinner at the White House, how to tackle affordability as he predicted an economic boom. This is according to sources talking to the Post. President Trump privately polled top CEOs for ideas on how to make U.S. voters' lives more affordable, even as he predicted a deregulation-driven economic boom on par with Reagan and Clinton, those eras. Is it a good idea to ask a bunch of big-name CEOs how to get price down, Marc?
Oh, I think it's fine, Katie. I think the reality is that his deregulatory agenda has helped lower prices. But I bet you that almost all the CEOs would also tell him that his trade agenda is hurting. I mean, as you've noticed today, when they announced they're going to lower the price of coffee and bananas by lowering tariffs, on the one hand, they've told us that tariffs don't increase prices, that it's merely a regulatory agenda. It's not about revenue, that these are nearly a surcharge. It's not really a tax that's going to increase prices. Yet somehow, on the other hand, you can say that we're going to lower tariffs to lower prices. I mean, I think they know clearly that this is what's driving prices up, and I bet you those same CEOs would tell them that. So I don't fault them for having a meeting like that. I think it's good to get that advice.
I can feel Generation Z asking, well, why would you not ask CEOs about their pay and the disparity between their pay and everybody else that works for them?
I think the market...
No, Marc, not to you. It's to Betsy.
I mean, Marc can answer that. Like, I think I'm going to agree with Marc that it's okay to ask CEOs, what ideas do you have to bring prices down for people? But I do think that it's also fair to be asking CEOs, what are you doing to make sure that you're paying workers fairly? What are you doing to stop offshoring things that can be done internally? How are you helping your workers manage an AI transition? And what kinds of things are you doing in terms of making your products fairer for customers? Because I think what people are facing when they're looking at these high prices, not just high prices, but trickery. Right? Like, I can't unsubscribe from this thing, so I've been paying for something I don't even value. Or I didn't even know that fee was there because there are hidden fees everywhere. That was something the Biden administration was trying to take on. I'd like to see CEOs competing on the merits, not on hiding their prices.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of questions I would ask them is, can you be more transparent with the public so they actually know what they're paying and what they're getting?
All right, Marc and Phil, I am saying goodbye to you this time. Thank you very much for joining us, guys. Betsy, don't go anywhere.